Rachel Zegler is losing it, and Disney might be losing even more. I'm sure you've all seen the explosive reaction to the Snow White trailer by now. Delaying the film for over a year did nothing to soften the blow. In fact, it's only gotten worse.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Now, with Disney facing a lawsuit for anti-male sexism, this film could end up being their most hated release yet. They're in deep trouble, and Zegler's involvement has only poured fuel on the fire. But here's the thing. While everyone's talking about the backlash, there's something else lurking beneath the surface that almost no one is mentioning. Because just a few months ago, Disney got hit with not one, but two major lawsuits. Elon Musk even stepped in to fund them, one involving Gina Carano's discrimination case, and the other a civil rights complaint for discrimination against men. And there's a leaked video from a Disney executive that might just be the smoking gun in this entire case.
Certainly, there have been times where, there's no way we're hiring a white male person.
Just kind of unspoken.
There are times when it's spoken, but
how would they say it?
There's no way we're hiring a white male person.
What is that actually happened? Of course it happened. I think this is a reflection of how
Oh my God!
Rachel Zegler's involvement in Snow White wasn't supposed to cause such an uproar, but it quickly became clear that her vision for the film was worlds apart from the beloved fairy tale.
Reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power.
Instead of delivering a familiar, timeless story, Zegler took a bold approach. No prince, no love story, and certainly no damsel waiting to be saved.
She's not going to be saved for the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
What started as a fresh take soon spiraled into controversy, as fans accused her of disrespecting the classic. The more she spoke about her modernized version, the more audiences pushed back. But as intense as the backlash was, it wasn't just her creative choices that were under fire. Behind the scenes, an even bigger issue was unfolding. A legal battle that could shake Disney to its core, and Zegler's role in the controversy was about to become more than just a PR nightmare. As Disney prepared for the growing backlash, another problem was bubbling under the surface. Reports came out that Disney was facing lawsuits, including one backed by Elon Musk. The claims? Discrimination against men. The center of this issue was a scene from the new Snow White, where Rachel Zegler's character seemed to boss the male dwarfs around, suggesting they couldn't clean or work hard. To many, this wasn't just a change to the story. It felt like an attack on men, and people were angry. As the lawsuit gained attention, Disney found itself in a tough spot. Could this scene be used in court? And if so, was more on the line than just the movie's success? As Zegler's version of Snow White split the audience, the issue became about more than just creative choices. It reflected Disney's entire culture. But this wasn't the only thing stirring up trouble. Rachel Zegler's interviews took the spotlight, and her comments weren't helping. She casually called the original Snow White outdated, and even joked about cutting her co-star scenes, saying the prince wasn't needed, and the love story didn't matter. Fans of the original were upset, feeling like Zegler didn't respect the character or the cherished fairy tale. Social media erupted, and it became clear this was more than just a movie problem. It was a cultural moment. Zegler's effort to modernize Snow White felt to many like part of a bigger issue in Hollywood, where classic stories were being changed to fit new ideas. The lawsuit and Zegler's comments came together, creating the perfect storm that turned Snow White into a symbol of Hollywood's struggle between tradition and change. Quick pause. If you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me continue bringing you more content like this, and your support means a lot. All right, back to the story. As the backlash grew, Disney scrambled to find solutions. Rumors spread about reshoots and rewrites, with executives desperately trying to save what they could of the movie. But the damage was already done. Rachel Zegler's public comments kept adding fuel to the fire, calling the original Snow White outdated and, in doing so, pushing away a large part of the audience.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937.
The legal troubles only made things worse. With Elon Musk funding a lawsuit claiming Disney's culture had turned against men, the company found itself battling on two fronts, creative and legal. Insiders hinted that certain scenes were being changed to avoid more accusations of sexism. What started as a simple update to a fairy tale had now become a case study of how storytelling clashes with politics and culture. And at the center of it all was Zegler, whose take on Snow White had become Disney's biggest headache. In the middle of this chaos, Disney's leadership knew they had to act fast. Bob Iger, already under pressure to cut costs and turn things around, was reportedly furious with how the project had turned out. They decided on last-minute reshoots to try and reduce the controversial elements. Rachel Zegler, still caught in the storm, was brought back to film new scenes. But by this point, her reputation had already taken a hit. Fans were split. Some supported her efforts to modernize the story, while others saw her as a symbol of everything wrong with Hollywood's agenda-driven storytelling. Meanwhile, the lawsuit hung over Disney, turning what was already a creative disaster into a financial and legal nightmare. Disney was stuck, trying to fix a movie that had become a symbol of a much larger cultural debate. As the controversy reached its height, Rachel Zegler found herself more and more alone. What began as a bold plan to reimagine Snow White had turned into a PR disaster. Fans were angry, and the lawsuit grew bigger with each passing day. Disney, once confident in Zegler's modern take, was now scrambling to fix things. The reshoots, which were first meant to make small changes, were turning into a complete overhaul. Rumors spread that Disney was trying to cut the scenes that critics said portrayed male characters negatively. But Zegler, always outspoken, didn't seem to back down. Instead of softening her position, she kept doubling down in interviews, continuing to criticize the original Snow White for being outdated.
Reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power.
It became clear that this wasn't just about one movie anymore. It was about Hollywood's struggle to rewrite classic stories to fit modern ideals and the backlash that came with it. With the lawsuit still looming, Disney faced a tough decision: support Zegler's vision or change course. The stakes couldn't be higher. Being tied to a lawsuit claiming anti-male sexism was bad enough, but pairing that with a failing movie was a recipe for disaster. Fans who grew up loving Snow White weren't just rejecting the new version, they were boycotting it. Merchandise sat unsold, and the internet was filled with negative reviews before the movie even hit theaters. Disney had hoped a fresh take on a classic story could help them through tough times, but now it looked like Snow White would be the final blow in their series of box office flops. Zegler's bold stance might have connected with some, but for most fans, it felt like an unwanted political message forced into a beloved fairy tale. As the release of Snow White approached, Disney was in full damage control mode. The boycott was gaining traction, and the lawsuit was still unresolved, leaving the company scrambling to save what they could. Reshoots were finished, but insiders said that Disney had cut several controversial scenes to calm both the lawsuit and upset fans. Rachel Zegler, once the outspoken face of Disney's feminist revamp, had gone silent, and her usual interviews were nowhere to be found. The pressure was growing, and it was clear that the studio was hoping the controversy would die down. But with each new trailer and teaser, fans became louder in their opposition. This wasn't the Snow White they knew, and the changes both on-screen and off felt like a direct attack on a beloved classic. Disney had bet on a modern reimagining, but the audience wasn't buying it, literally. Meanwhile, the lawsuit continued to loom over everything. Legal experts suggested that Disney's edits weren't just about pleasing fans, but about protecting the company from further legal trouble. The accusations of anti-male sexism were serious, and losing the case could have long-lasting effects on how Hollywood handles gender in its stories. For Rachel Zegler, the stakes were just as high. Her reputation had taken a major hit, and with Disney reportedly pulling away from her for future projects, her career in Hollywood was now uncertain. What started as a bold reimagining of a fairy tale had turned into a legal and cultural mess. With Snow White set to be released during one of Disney's biggest boycotts, the film wasn't just struggling for box office success, it was fighting for survival. And for Disney, this was about more than just one movie. It was a crucial moment in their fight to win back the trust of their audience. As Snow White finally premiered, the tension in Hollywood was clear. Disney had hoped that reshoots and toning down the messaging would calm the backlash, but the damage was already done. Fans who grew up with the 1937 classic were vocal, and many stuck to their boycott. Early reviews came in, and while some liked the updated visuals and performances, many felt that the heart of the story was missing. The lack of the traditional romance and the focus on a message left audiences disappointed. Rachel Zegler, once seen as the progressive face of the film, was no longer at the center. Her earlier comments had turned off a large part of the fan base, and it showed. As box office numbers rolled in, Snow White struggled, with many blaming the boycott and bad word of mouth. For Disney, it was a wake-up call on how quickly public opinion could shift. Behind the scenes, the lawsuit over anti-male sexism still lingered, casting a shadow over any success the film could have had. Lawyers were reportedly watching Disney closely, waiting to see how they would manage the fallout. With the lawsuit still unresolved, Disney's leadership was left wondering how they had so badly misunderstood their audience. The gap between the company and its fans was now obvious. Fans weren't rejecting diversity or new ideas. They were pushing back against feeling lectured, especially in a beloved and timeless fairy tale. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler's future in Hollywood looked shaky. Once seen as a rising star, she now found herself in the middle of one of Disney's biggest controversies. As the dust settled, it was clear that Snow White 2025 would be remembered not for its attempt at being modern, but for sparking a bigger debate about storytelling, identity, and how far classic tales should be changed. In the end, Snow White 2025 became more than just a box office flop. It became a symbol of the growing divide between Hollywood and its audience. For Disney, the lesson was clear. Audiences want fresh takes on classic stories, but not at the cost of what made them special in the first place. The lawsuit over anti-male sexism was still hanging over the company, and even if Disney avoided legal trouble, the damage to its reputation was already done. Rachel Zegler, once seen as the face of a new wave of Disney princesses, was now at a crossroads, with her future in Hollywood uncertain after all the backlash. The Snow White controversy was a wake-up call for the film industry, showing that audiences want stories with heart, not forced messages. For many, the failure of this movie wasn't just about one character, but a bigger warning to Hollywood. Stay true to the magic, or risk losing your audience. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content like this. Also, let me know in the comments, do you think Hollywood should stick closer to the original versions of classic stories, or is there room for bold changes? All right, see you in the next one.